Okay, so we're here today with Mr. Michael Dutro.
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you back on the homeland, or you still down south?
I'm in the Caribbean, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Hudson River's frozen, East River's frozen, and I don't have ice skates or skis. But
I'm
from
gonna
what I
be up there
understand,
on Sunday.
you're gonna be you're gonna be at
5 iron,
my neck of the woods. Which one is it? Grand Central?
Rockefeller. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I mean, I've been there one other time just to kind of check the place out, and what those guys do with the indoor space, man, is second to none. They make cool places. I mean, it's if you're gonna do indoor golf, I mean, by God, they do it right.
Yeah, I mean you're gonna be up at I mean, I don't think that's their flagship. I think is Grand Central. I don't know
I
actually.
think they have a couple flagships there in the city. I mean, it's crazy the investment they made just in New York City alone, let alone all the other properties they have. Even the one I was been doing some work out of the Detroit location, and they've got 13 Sims in there, and I mean, I think they said it's their third biggest footprint that they have, and you would think, Detroit's not really known as a huge golf market, but it's pretty cool the investment they made into Detroit with it. So I think it's cool, man. I think it's good. I think anything we can do to get more people involved with golf and kind of make it more accessible to people, I'm all in favor of.
Yeah, particularly the fact that their locations in New York are at, premium square footage places. So you got Grand Central, Rockefeller Center. I know they got something like in Chelsea, and they have something where I'm at, where I live is Long Island City, and that's like, that's a lot per square foot.
Yeah, I honest to God, walking in, I think I went into the one that's in, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not a New Yorker, but the one that is like right in Manhattan is the one that I toured. And I was just looking at it from purely a square footage perspective. And I just can't imagine what they pay in rent alone, let alone the upkeep and everything else.
Yeah, they seem to believe in their model, and I wish I could be there because, um, it would be the opportunity to meet you in person. It would probably be a pretty good seminar. I saw your little presentation there at the PGA show. It's
Yeah.
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, the only thing I'm bummed out with that is, I present a fair amount. And one thing that I've learned, and this is firsthand knowledge because I've been the guy sitting in the seat for so long going to these things, is that we as coaches, it's tough to get us to sit there for an hour and listen to a presentation and look at slides. Like every golf coach I know has ants in their pants and wants to get up and get doing stuff. So the thing I really tried to do at the PGA show was I wanted to keep the presentation to like a bare minimum, like 20, 30 minutes, which is kind of what they put up there. But the Q&A, man, it was gold because, I really having the opportunity to present, I've kind of learned how to get the crowd a little more interactive, how to get them involved, and really letting the people in the audience ask the questions that they want to know is really key. And it was really good because we had such a good mix of people there at the show. Some of the questions were, pretty basic stuff when it comes to force plates because they don't necessarily have force plates themselves. But then we had some other force plate users there who really wanted to get in the weeds. So I really enjoyed the Q&A part of that and was disappointed that the Q&A didn't make it into the video that they put together.
Yeah, especially in that arena, it's a, it's a subsection of the golf industry where, when you get those Q&As, you have people that literally have force plates, and they have, specific questions that
Yeah.
help the other guys because, if you don't have a force plate, you can't think of what to ask, and then, "Oh, yeah, maybe that's pretty cool."
Yeah, I just think it's always better when you kind of take yourself out of it as much as you can and just try to be a conduit of information for people, which is what we try to do with our podcast and what we try to do with our YouTube is I really try my best to not go, "Hey, this is the only way you can do this." But I do try to put up stuff conceptually that, we know to be true from a what we've measured perspective, what we've done in research perspective, and what's kind of agreed upon. Because there's things that I have ideas about. There's things that I've seen in the force plate data and the 3D data that I think could be something. But I also don't normally share things that I haven't talked about with people way smarter than me. I've been really happy here lately. I've been spending more and more time with Dr. Tyler Sanderford that does a lot of biomechanics work for Smart to Move, and really bright guy, really into it, very collaborative. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met in the golf industry. And just it's nice to compare notes, and it's nice to find people who are kind of an open book and willing to share their information, because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to move it forward. You know, we can't all kind of feel like we guard these secrets, because I think the secrets are more or less out there now. So I would rather just kind of confirm and vet what I think. And, you know, maybe I'm off base and maybe I didn't see something that Dr. T saw, or vice versa. And it's been a really great kind of collaboration between the two of us. I've been happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be if like a person like yourself who's on the practical end, right? You're seeing myriad of golfers, a nice sub cross section of golfers, and that you're gonna encounter a lot of things that are not gonna come from a lab environment or something like that, and, to have somebody to bounce these kinds of things off is pretty good.
Yeah. I was never the best student, so, like, I always took advantage of office hours. So,
That's
it's nice
good.
to finally, have somebody that it's just so much different. I said this at the PGA show. I've had James Lights was the first guy to have 3D plates in the country. I think I was the 3rd. And early doors back in 2018, 2019, when we were getting these things, A, we didn't know what we were looking at. 2, we didn't have anything to compare it to. And most importantly, we didn't have anybody to even talk to about it, because nobody had them. So coming from there to where we're at now, to where people are creating content and putting stuff out there and sharing ideas, it's going to make us way better practitioners with this technology than where we were, 5 to 10 years ago. And we were all just trying to figure out how to turn the damn things on.
Sure, I mean, James Lights is credit to him, he's quite the pioneer. I mean, I think he was the first guys to have TrackMan,
He's one of the
if I
first for
recall
sure.
correctly. Might have been the first guy in the country, right? So
I mean, and he's done it twice now, and honestly, he did it with 3D as well. I mean, you can really give him credit 3 times. He was very early doors with the 3D stuff. I think most of the guys that are big into the 3D motion capture space owe James Lights like a portion of their proceeds, for kind of teaching them how to use that technology. Same thing with TrackMan, same thing with force plates. And, I love to death. He's a great guy. I've got to spend time with him over the years. He's like me and like a lot of people. He's just very inquisitive, and he's way more concerned with getting it right than being right.
that's absolutely credit to him, because
Yeah,
it takes
100%.
takes a substantial amount of risk and capital investment to become the beta.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, and he's talked about this, so I'm not talking out of school, but, he's spent his entire career down in Louisiana. And, I don't, and this is public. I'm not sharing anything I shouldn't be sharing, but I don't know that he was ever charging until probably recently, and I hope he is, but I don't think he was ever charging more than about $150 an hour for a golf lesson. So, I mean, like when you're buying $40,000 force plates and $1,000 3D motion capture and all these different things, I don't know that he ever actually made his money back on any of that.
Well, that's from there, that's my point. I mean, you're in Louisiana, you're in a small market, right?
Yeah.
It's not like New York City where people can charge a premium and there's people that are willing to pay a premium. Again, it's a business decision that's a little risky, but, you can always come out being the cutting edge guy, right?
Yeah, and I think he's kind of turned that into a bit of a career in its own right. I know he travels a lot with the guys at Smart to Move. I know he's traveling a lot with Gears. I know he's done a lot of work outside of Louisiana, and I hope that he's made a killing with it, because he rightfully so deserves every penny he makes, because he's made us all better. And I a lot of people that are, we've had a big influx in golfers since COVID, and because there's more money in the game now than there's ever been, we've got a lot of people that are popping up as coaches and experts and gurus and all of these types of things. But you got to kind of pay homage to the guys that really pioneered this stuff. And James is definitely on that Mount Rushmore of kind of being one of the technology leaders and first guys and beta guys out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's definitely, he's a national figure and He's done a lot for the game and for the rest of us to learn. So now we're on that subject. I mean, you're known as the force plate guy, right?
Yeah, that's what they claim.
Okay, cool. So as an instructor, right? How quickly do you go to the ground forces, ground reaction forces, in that
Immediately.
other words? Immediately?
I've taught 5 lessons today, and I've used them in all 5 lessons. And one I take that back, 2 college players, one kinda gen pop, mid-40s, dad, busy, plays a little bit of golf, doesn't move the needle for him, and 2 women, one competitive, older, kinda mid-am style player, and one kinda getting into the game because her new husband is an avid golfer, so she's learning. She's pretty early doors. And, like, I was just talking to Dr. Tyler Standerford about this, and, one of the big things that we've kinda come up with recently is a lot of people talk about setup like it's one of these fundamentals that people just naturally do. And one of the things we've really noticed with setup is not only where the pressure is under the feet at setup, but the line of pressure that we create with the setup. And the funny thing is I just released a video on this on our YouTube channel talking about this line of pressure, but we've got to get the pressure underneath the balls of the feet. And we've also got to get the line of pressure positive to start. So we don't want to stagger the feet. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about getting the pressure.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. So you said you want to get the line of pressure positive. What you're referring to in respect to what? What's the orientation that would create a positive?
Yeah, so if you think about kind of standing there in front of the golf ball, if you were to think about your club path being positive or to the right, that would create a line that's kind of shifted rightward. And we kind of want to do that with our line of pressure under our feet. We want to be under both each ball, but we want to get that slightly shifted positive or to the right. Kind of, you could think of it kind of as almost like a closed feeling with your stance without staggering the feet.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, Dr. T and myself have both, I think we've never really, as force plate users, it's never been that difficult to understand vertical force. And I think that's why we talked about vertical force so much early on, is because that's pretty easy to understand down and up. The club goes down and up. Like we kind of get that pretty easy. A lateral force side to side, we kind of get that one pretty easy. But the one that always kind of baffled us and was difficult for us to change with people was vertical torque and getting people to create this torque in the frontal plane. And I mean, to be honest with you, I think for the first 5 years that I had force plates, I really kind of struggled with that and creating better torques. And, we'd reach out to other coaches. What drills do you have? What's been working? You'd find something that maybe worked for one person, but didn't work for the other. But what we've kind of recently discovered, and Dr. T gets credit for this one because he's really kind of opened me up to it as well. But when we get this line of pressure set positive to begin with, it's almost amazing at not only how much better their torque scenario gets in terms of the timing and the magnitude of that force, but also how everything kind of cleans up across the board. And the thing is like for this young woman I had earlier today, who's not played a lot of golf, you'd be surprised at how many people don't know what it feels like to have the pressure underneath the balls of their feet. So when it comes to using force plates, I use them every lesson or try to use them every lesson. But with this particular case, I never showed her a single graph. I never like really did too many captures with her. But what I did do was I put it into live mode and showed her at setup where her pressure was on her feet, which was way more under the arches of her feet, her midfoot, versus up on the balls of her feet. And it's just kind of a nice way to take somebody who doesn't know how something feels or doesn't know how something's supposed to be and kind of show it to them in a very easy to kind of manage way. And it just creates some awareness around the things that we want to do in a positive manner.
Great. I mean, right now, since you early on mentioned your podcast, I've actually been listening to it and I
Well,
thoroughly
thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thanks.
And, just for anybody out there who's not aware of Michael's, it's very well put together, very well thought out information and presented in a very digestible manner. If you're into this kind of stuff that we're talking about right now, I suggest you fly it out there and subscribe and like, and it's pretty good. Okay,
Appreciate that, bud.
I got you your plug for the day.
Hey, We're killing it now.
You're doing good. I mean, you're out there, and I think, what you're offering is very valuable information, right?
Yeah. Just try to cut through the noise a little bit,
Well,
I
the
mean,
paradigm has changed. The paradigm has changed, right? So,
yeah. I
now that
mean,
we
how many
understand
people that you work with, Ralph, and you see coaching, they hit you're out on the golf course, right? And they hit one thin or they kind of top one or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I lifted my head." And it's like people are still saying kind of nonsensical stuff out there, right? And I think people are grasping at straws to kind of explain what's going on. And for me, if I can add clarity and help people understand, like, what do people mean by early extension? Like, I've seen 10 million definitions of early extension today on Instagram alone. We use these kind of terms very vaguely, and we kind of use them as a catch-all for a lot of things. But if I've got new golfers out there or accomplished golfers out there, and they can watch a video that we put together on YouTube, and they take something away from that and they have a better understanding, I think that's going to be helpful. I think just trying to get the terminology up to date, get the concepts up to date, and kind of give people the understanding. One of the fun things that I really enjoy about presenting is, you kind of have to make an idiot out of yourself a little bit because everybody's so afraid of asking excuse me, asking a dumb question. And there are really no dumb, the only dumb question is the one that doesn't
so
get
what you're gonna
asked.
ask.
Right. I think the more of this stuff we can put out there that maybe seems pretty high level, maybe seems pretty convoluted in a way, if you haven't heard some of this terminology before, I think the more we can put that stuff out there and kind of break it down so that people like me can understand it, I think that's just going to benefit the industry as a whole.
I agree, and I think that, like you said, there's a lot of, overnight instructors, I guess, would be a good term for what's happened as a result of COVID and, you know,
Follow the money.
follow s we think you're following the money, right? And the
But I
reality
mean,
is
that's where
this,
they're
right?
coming from.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking, and that happened at one I can't remember, there was a recession that hit, right? And all of a sudden, I'm on LinkedIn, and everybody I knew that was in other just bec all of a sudden, now they're life coaches. Okay, this seems to be the new trend is to be a life coach. 'Cause, I guess the same thing could happen with golf coaching. I think that
There's just
the
nothing
educated
for golf coaches to protect themselves with. That's really the problem. I mean, my wife is a licensed therapist. That's what she does for a living. And it's funny you brought up life coaches because, a lot of her clients, they kind of start therapy with these life coaches and then kind of get frustrated in the fact that they're talking about the same problem week after week and not really getting anywhere with it. So, they wind up coming to her and they're like, "Well, we didn't think about this or we didn't talk about this." My wife's like, "Well, no kidding, because the person you were talking to probably doesn't even know it exists." That's why I went to school for so many years to learn this stuff. And in golf instruction, it's really weird. It's gotten to a funny place because I think for a long time, the PGA of America, being a PGA member, at least kind of gave you that credential that you've at least kind of looked into this a little bit. Whether the PGA really did a good enough job training us as coaches, that's a topic for another time. But at least we kind of had that PGA logo and comma PGA to put after our name that kind of separated us from the crowd. But now every consumer's online. They're on YouTube, they're on social media, they're on all these different platforms. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, you can buy a following. You can go from having 0 followers to a quarter million
you
followers if you want to spend the money on it. You can have a blue dot or a blue check mark by your name if you're willing to pay for it. And I think a lot of consumers just get hoodwinked by people that mean well, I like to think, but generally are there to make money. They don't have the seat time, they don't have the mentorship, they don't have the education, they don't have the firsthand experience. In my case, I played tournament golf. I can speak to that because I've done it. I think that a lot of people, unfortunately, out there are just getting hoodwinked, and a lot of people are out there looking for a deal. And just because something's cheap doesn't mean it's good, and just because something's good doesn't mean it's cheap. So, if you're willing to buy 3 drivers every year because you think that's the solution, well, I would say maybe buy 1 driver and take the other 1,200 bucks and throw it in some lessons, and you probably come out a lot better on the other side.
Okay, I'm in a country here where there is okay. So getting back to your point, it is completely unregulated. Okay, first thing. Second thing, if you have, I'm saying this from experience. I ran a golf facility for a large, pretty large. Had 8 PGA pros under me. Took the PAT, but that route was not for me. I mean, turns out that it worked out better in my life than had I turned pro, I think. But anyway, it's unregulated, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So if we're talking about a whole crowd of new golfers, right? You're not talking about an educated consumer. You have a myriad of information. I don't know if I ever showed you these cutouts I had from Golf Magazine. Had these binders and all this stuff. About 300 pages. That's like 20 something years of
Yeah,
collecting shit, right? You could do that, right? I could hit my smartphone and have 40,000 more times more information than that in
yeah,
fractions of a second, right? So it's pretty tough, right? S- Now it's not even about education, it's emotional. Here, there is no such thing as any governing body when it comes to golf. There's one guy who's legit, and that's Jay Overton, who's over at Corrales. Now, Jay Overton is, an emeritus. He's legit, he's a real McCoy. Other than that, people are getting instruction from caddies. Who are you turning to? Who knows more? Who's been around the golf course the most, right? And then there's an attachment. Okay, there's an attachment. It gets to the point where it's not only are they, they're mentoring you to the point where you won't listen to anything else.
yeah,
Especially if you hit a good shot. They say something at that moment in time, the stars line up and you've hit a great shot, forget it. It's over. I mean, and so it's tough to go up against the wave, right? Do your homework, invest in your professional development, invest in this, invest in that, invest in being the best. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna translate into what it should.
yeah. I mean, I think, I talk to a lot. I probably mentor close to 100 other golf coaches, which I'm very proud of and happy to do. And, I have a lot of conversations with people, man, that, aren't making much money, if any. It's not cheap to buy a launch monitor. It's not cheap to buy force plates. It's not cheap to go to education summits. Like it costs money. And, to your point, I don't feel like the new golf consumer, if we want to call it that, I don't feel like they're really vetting who they're going to. I think that they find somebody that they like online for whatever reason, or they find somebody who's got a big following, or they find that guy in their area that's, got a package deal to where he's giving it away because he's a financial manager during the day or whatever the case is. And they go there. And, people, the thing that depresses me the most about golfers is they just have such low expectations for themselves. And, like, as long as somebody shows up and, like, pays attention to them for an hour, they feel like they got a quality golf lesson. And I really that's why I love what I do. There's a lot of data, but it's objective. And I'm able to go, "Hey," you know and this is the problem that people run into with, like, this whole DIY, YouTube, I'm gonna teach myself kind of situation, is that they don't diagnose themselves correctly. They don't even know what their actual problem is. They just hear things that sound good and it all sounds pretty good. So they're just constantly trying this and trying that, and they don't really stick with anything because they don't actually know what's wrong with their golf swing. So the nice thing about the way we do it and the way a lot of the people I mentor do it is you come in, we get all the data, we sit you down, we go, "Hey, here's your actual issue. Like here's the thing that's really getting in the way of you playing better golf." And then the thing that's really great, if you're talented and you have some skill and you can affect that thing that you pointed out, Ralph, they haul off and hit one better than they ever dreamed. And, like, they're so willing to just settle for average, and I truly feel like it doesn't matter whether you're Mrs. Haverkamp or, anybody else, you can play way better golf. You really can. Golf, it doesn't have to be as difficult as we've made it to be. I just feel like we've kind of been in the Stone Ages for a long time, and it's sad, man, because we've just beaten the will out of the golfer, and as long as they're not getting worse, they're pretty happy. And I feel like we should be trying to get better.
I agree with you 100%, but again, going back to the unregulation. I'm not gonna say deregulated because it never was regulated. So you've never had anybody sued, that I know of, anybody sued for receiving an incompetent golf lesson. Is that a fact or what? Okay.
I think you're right. And it's funny. I was joking about this the other day. I met this amazing young woman, college player, one of the colleges that I consult with. I just recently started this relationship, and they asked me. They're like, "Hey, your last person you're going to see today. This is her story. Really great golfer when she can play golf, but she can't play golf because she's hurt all the time. Like actually hurt. Like not like
Mhm.
oh I got a boo boo. Like no, she's hurt." And they're like, "We just can't keep her on the golf course to play golf." And they're like, "Would you please, do an eval with her and figure out what we got to do?" So I do this eval with her and I see some stuff pretty quick. I don't say anything to her. I don't point anything out. And I'm just like, "Hey, do you have a golf coach?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "What are you guys working on?" And she tells me, like, she's obviously an accomplished player. She knows what she's working on. And honestly, Ralph, I felt terrible. And luckily, I have just enough bedside manner to not put my foot in my mouth too bad here. But the things her coach was telling her to do was what was causing these injuries. I 100% can prove that. And this poor girl is so talented and cares so much and really is putting everything she can into this. She's at the freaking rehab like 6 hours a week trying to get her back put back together. But the thing that she's being taught to do with her golf swing is destroying a 20-year-old strong young woman's back. And, that coach should be sued for malpractice for what he's doing to this player. Absolutely. And, I own a business, right? So I have to carry, insurance, liability
Sure.
insurance.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I think if you really want to just start weeding out the crowd a little bit, look for a golf coach who has liability insurance. At least they like are thinking about this a little bit, right? But
Yeah,
yeah, I
so
mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think that we as golf, I said this, I got absolutely destroyed on Instagram for this, but I put up a story that said golf coaches get way too much credit, not enough blame. And I strongly believe that. I swear that's true.
sure. I mean, I sued a big state agency, right? You got this guy working in an airport without a professional license. And I said, "Well, okay, that's cool. Well, how the fuck does this guy get professional liability insurance if he's not a professional?" I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense.
When you get trapped in the bureaucracy, it's tough. But again, if you were to say, "Okay, I'm carrying insurance," right? If I'm an actuary, right? I'm an insurance actuary. In order for me to insure you, like right now, for example, and some just tripped off just a little bit. Iran has the Strait of Hormuz on lockdown, right? Not really because they're mining it or anything else, because the insurers will not let them cross. Correct? Because
Percent.
they know the liability associated with $100 million oil tanker full of right. Okay, so how can I, as an insurance company, just insure people because they have a lot of followers? Does it make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't. And I get it. It's all about appearances now. It's all about what you put out there and what people think. And the other problem too with it all is that the consumer doesn't A know what a professional golf lesson looks like, and B, they don't know what a good golf swing looks like. Because golf swings that are good, there's not one look to that. Everybody says like, "Oh my God, I love Like I love to do this with people, but they're like, "Oh my God, Adam Scott's got the most beautiful golf swing ever." And I just ask a follow up question. I'm like, "Tell me what's so beautiful about it." Well, like I know, like, okay, tell me,
The
like, what's
aesthetics,
so
yeah, sure.
good about? And I'm not saying Adam Scott doesn't have a good golf swing. I'm not trying to attract that kind of heat, but people don't even know what their golf swing should look like. People don't know what a good golf swing should feel like. I'll give you a clue. It shouldn't hurt you, and you should be able to make more speed than you think you could. Like, done. Like, it's a
Right,
13-ounce golf club, man. Like, you should be able to swing this thing with some pretty good pace. So
right.
people that hurt after playing golf, people that can't play golf multiple days in a row, people that don't make very much speed and kind of duff it out there, like, those people were just completely lost. And it's nobody's fault. It's not their fault. It's the industry's fault that I'm part of, and I'm part of the problem as well. Like, we're not doing a good enough job educating people on what they should expect and how this should kind of go forward for them. We're just not.
Okay, well, I agree with that, and, kinda like so my mentor and longtime coach, Greg McHatton, so he was screwing around with force plates and trace vectors and all in fact, he used to do stuff for my old blog. You know, he'd take Hogan and do the traces and all that, and they had like a $70,000 no, it was for $400,000 force plates. I mean, probably compared to what you have out now, it's probably 2 electrical scales or whatever, but, you know, Sun Microsystems, you probably had punch cards. They had 3 full-time biomechanists, and they came up with stuff that's eerily similar to what's coming up today, but he used to talk about the geometry is what we see, right? You see these angles and this stuff, but what's really going on is what the kind of stuff you talk about, the forces
Yeah.
that create that movement, and so, you know, I learned a lot from him about that,
Yeah.
and I
I
think
mean,
that
you sent me a note before we did this kind of with an article about, 15 and 19-year-olds. It's almost like a badge of honor to have Tommy John surgery. And you kind of
that's the
wanted to,
baseball, yeah, and
yeah.
you
And
had
you wanted,
when when we were on the last, podcast, which most people don't know, we lost it, but it was a great interview, and you had brought that up with respect to junior golf,
yeah.
that the kids chasing distance, so I don't wanna hear that, make sure we didn't miss that.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy at how many torn or partially torn trail labrums in the hip that we're seeing in junior golfers. I mean, I legitimately, I think I've been to, trying to think, I think I've been to 6 different colleges this year, working with both men's and women's teams. So I'm dealing with, anywhere between 12 to 18 players per team. I've yet to be one to where they had a healthy lineup. And it's funny, and I give the women credit, and they never bring it. The guys will bring up sore pain, backs, things like that. They'll bring it up pretty quick. The girls never say anything. But when we see, like, in the vertical force, okay, when we look at that graph and that spike in that graph, what you see a lot of, and especially with your, and I do not mean to be sexist or misogynistic in any way, shape, or form, but when you look at your women who tend to be thinner and taller, and they kind of are like string beans, kind of, right? When we look at those players, we tend to see a lot of this double spiking going on. And it is a root cause for players having discomfort and or pain and or injury in that lower right kind of hip area, lower right back area, trail back, I should say, trail side of their back, I should say, actually. They will have a large amount of discomfort, if not pain, if not injury. And it's funny because I'll see this on the force plates and I'll just ask them, I'll be like, hey, you haven't brought it up, but how's your lower back? Oh my God, how'd you know? And it's wild at how much we're seeing this. And honestly, I think a lot of the reason we see this is because, going back to your comment about geometry, like, every golfer has this innate fear of over the top with their arms in transition. And the way I kind of look at this is stage one of a new golfer is they got to learn to hit the damn ball, which isn't the easiest proposition for people, right? So step one, learn to hit the ball every time. And then step two, cure the slice, because every new golfer is a slicer, and it has to do with the lie angle of the golf club wanting to go behind them, and then that gets them kind of coming across the top, and they become a slicer. That's kind of the first big hurdle, or the second big hurdle, I should say, and kind of becoming a better golfer is you got to fix the slice. So I think a lot of coaches not understanding human anatomy, not understanding ground reaction forces, they just start telling that person to pull the club down, ring the bell, do all these things. But when we kind of start doing that and creating all this unnecessary side bend and all this unnecessary sway, it just really loads the pressure into the lower back on the trail side. And that's kind of not far away from where that labrum lives. And that labrum is basically kind of holding that hip joint together. And as players are chasing speed and have this really fundamentally flawed way of trying to generate speed, something's got to give. And I mean, I don't want to use this word loosely. It feels like a freaking epidemic, man, as many times as we see it. And when I talk to other people that have plates, they're seeing it all the time too. And we see baseball pitchers, young people trying to throw the ball harder. We see golfers trying to hit the ball farther. And speed is a very easy, sexy sell to the masses. And I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't be trying to max out speed with junior players. You need to let them go through puberty. You need to let them get stronger, and the speed will come. But trying to train speed at an early age is absolutely crazy to me.
You know what? And that's kind of goes back to Arnold Palmer. My father told me to hit it as far as I could, would straighten it out later,
Yeah.
and that seems to be the mantra now. Hit it as far as you can, we'll figure it out later. Can't teach speed, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's, Tommy John surgery, you know, little leaguers are getting Tommy John surgery. This is pretty bad, man.
It's crazy, man. I mean, like, these are young people. Like, the thing that drives me crazy, and I'm just gonna stick to golf, because I work with a lot more junior golfers and junior baseball players.
Right.
You know, when you kinda think about, like, youngsters, right? Like, even through puberty, right? Like, the bones and humans really don't get hard until, like, in the early 20s, okay?
Mhm.
So, the bones are kinda like gelatin in a way. Like, they're kinda
Right.
squishy, they're kinda soft, and on either side of the bone is a joint. And when we have these kind of rubbery bones, if you will, and we start trying to ramp up the speed and we start compressing these things and grinding on these things, it just is really setting these young people up for a lot of injuries down the road. And I mean, I've seen it more than once, but I've seen like people who have, played junior golf, played college golf, didn't make it to the pro level, but they can't stand up straight, and it's golf. This isn't football, right? This isn't like where you're getting smashed into by some 300-pound gorilla. This is golf, man. And like, to have a life altering injury or a life shaping injury, it's wild to me. And it goes back to, these people ought to be sued for malpractice, but you know, they don't know any better. I like to think that they don't have malintent. They just have an unawareness and they think, well, golf looks easy, so I can teach this. And it's just not the case anymore.
It's interesting how you always wanna break back, and because golf's a good leisure sport. It's a very enjoyable game, so, I mean, if you don't
You're outside, it's wonderful.
play good golf without getting hurt, I mean, that's does that sound right? Am I yeah.
I
You talk
mean,
about the go ahead.
I
Sorry,
mean,
go
I think it's wild. Everybody's had Scotty Scheffler on injury on the injury clock, and oh, he's going to get
injury
hurt. He's
luck,
going to
yeah.
get hurt. The only thing that seems to bug him is his neck. He's not got any lower body injuries. He's not got, a back injury. I think the reason his neck bothers him is kind of how he likes to release the club when he hits his kind of cut. I think that sometimes he kind of gets a little bit stuck in that trail kind of trap area, and I think that probably flares it up. But, the guy, as far as I know, has never had any lower body injury, has never had any back injury. And, quote unquote, he early extends. Like, if you look at his motion, a lot of people, and I disagree with this, would call it early extension, but he stands up a ton through the golf swing. And, we've been taught against that since the inception of golf. You got to stay in posture, you got to keep your head down, you got to do all these things. But this force that we're creating has to go somewhere through the body. And I really think, and I hope, and maybe going back to my original point of putting content out there, is like, man, if I can just get one parent to like understand that it's okay, little Timmy stands up in his golf swing, that's going to save at least one back. Because the one thing that golf has notoriously been hard on is backs. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the way we've taught the golf swing over the years and trying to make it look a certain way on camera versus understanding the actual motion going on.
I agree with you 100%, and this Scheffler shuffle, whatever they're calling it. Greg Norman, Johnny Miller called it a cricket move. He was number 1 in the world for 331 weeks. Not since Tiger Woods, making that same type of action on the lower body. I looked at, talked a lot to, Bradley Hughes, right? And we were talking. He said, we really didn't have proper tuition down in Australia, right? So we had you'd watch the Australian PGA and they had all these funky looking moves. You look at guys like Peter Senior, and there was a lot of leg action. Yet
Yeah.
these guys went years and you didn't hear anything about any injuries, right? They were just swinging the way they figured how to, okay, this is going to propel the club, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
it's funny, so much of what we think of from, like, a golf biomechanics perspective comes from Australia, and it's well known, I'm not talking out of school, but Dave Phillips from TPI and, Dr. Greg Rose went over to Australia and kinda sat through one of Golf Australia's presentations on golf biomechanics, and, like, that was kind of the genesis of TPI as we know it now. And
okay.
what a lot of people don't realize is it's actually a pretty cool story. But Australia was for a long time a place you didn't want to go. It's pretty inhospitable in terms of the climate and in terms of all the things that can kill you there.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people forget it was a prison colony to start.
Sure.
So it really wasn't this desirable location. And as their economy grew, as their society grew, they were trying to figure out, how do we get people to come and be tourists? How do we get the tourist dollars? And what they did was they invested heavily into sport. That was what they did. They were, I don't want to say this because it has such a negative connotation, but it's the correct terminology. They were the first sports washers of the sports washers. And they were the first ones to kind of realize, like, hey, we can get the name Australia out there a lot more through sport than we can any other way. So they invested heavily into their sports. They brought in scientists, they brought in, really smart people to look at this stuff. And that's where a lot of this stuff originated from, was over in Australia, over in the UK. A
Hmm.
lot of people, I've got one right here, but a lot of people, act like the golfing machine, which I love. I have 2 copies. But a lot of people kind of treat this as the first attempt at, like, understanding the golf swing from a mathematical geometry perspective. Well, this book I could show you was published in 1969.
And bringing
Right.
Cochrane and Stubbs,
And then I could show you this book, The
Cochrane and
Search for
Stubbs.
the Perfect Swing, okay, by Dr. Alistair Cochrane. This came out in 1968. And the funny thing
Yeah.
is if you have the biomechanists go through this book and you have the biomechanists go through this book, they agree with this one a whole heck of a lot more.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just funny how we kinda have this America first mentality, which I'm a proud American. I love, I pull for America, but we've cloned a lot of this stuff that's come out. And granted, we've put resources into it. We've made things better. We've made our changes. But, going back to your original comment, I think the Australians really kind of understood a lot of this biomechanics stuff early doors, way before most of us. And it's funny that, probably one of the most famous Australian golfers of all time, Greg Norman, before the ball change in the early 2000s, was the greatest driver of the golf ball on the planet. It wasn't even close. And people talk about how good Rory is with a driver now. Rory's not nearly as good now as Greg Norman was then. I mean,
No,
he had a
you're absolutely right.
significant advantage on every field. His driver was a weapon.
Yes. Yes.
And
I
once
agree.
again, an Australian, right?
Yeah.
So
And
it's
again,
it's
it
just
was,
kind of funny
yeah.
how all that works out.
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. So now you're coming into your season, correct?
Coming out of, actually, a little bit.
Well,
It's
you're more right because the indoor facility lends itself to uh
Yeah, we've been
the
busy.
lake,
We've been
the
busy,
lake,
busy.
the lake effect, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
You do have a lake up there. Which one of the lakes hits you?
We're closest to Lake Erie, but,
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people I never thought about this until I lived here in Michigan, but Michigan is essentially the opposite of Florida. Florida is a peninsula and a very angry ocean, and Michigan is a peninsula between, like, basically 3 lakes. So you've got Lake Erie, you've got Lake Michigan, you got Lake Superior. I actually have Lake Huron that touches Michigan, so 4 lakes, because I think the 5th Great Lake, Ontario, I don't think it touches us. It might touch the UP, but yeah, we're essentially a peninsula. And man, like this winter, it's no joke. Like it gets cold and it gets wet and it gets snowy. And we've had a lot of snow this year.
Yeah, my company did worked on the Tappan Zee Bridge in, New York, and the same company, Fluor and American Bridge, is doing a bridge between Detroit. Well, actually, Trump tried to shut it down recently. What is it? Gordie Howe Bridge.
Yeah, the new Gordie Howe Bridge.
Yeah, so they were like, "Well," and they're trying to hire us to go up the I said, "Not, not for me,
No,
bro."
wrong
No.
time of year. Summer, like the summers are
Yeah.
so good. Like that's kind of the weird thing is, and I wish my schedule was different than it is. I'm very busy here in the winter. And then, I still have some speaking engagements. I still go on the road a fair amount this time of year. But
Mhm.
once the summer hits, it's like things kind of slow down here at the facility. And then I'm on the road a lot more, which kind of stinks because like it sucks to be here for the winter and not for the summer. Cause if you had your jollies, you wouldn't be here in the winter and you would stay in the summer because the weather's so good.
I hear some great things about Michigan golf and some
Unreal,
Michigan,
especially if you
Minnesota,
go up north.
those places like in, when it thaws out, it's, like, beautiful, you know?
Yeah. Like this place, I'm not from here originally. I've been here for I think 13 years or something like that. But it is amazing. It seems like every summer, I can't remember when we didn't have this happen, but it's like, dude, you'll get an entire month, like an entire month of just crystal blue skies, not a cloud in the sky, 75 degrees. You'll get like a month back to back of that. And it's just amazing. Like it's really good in the summer. It's just, man, the winters, especially as I get older, I get more gray in this beard. The winters just feel longer and longer.
Well, for your case, it's probably a good thing, right? Winters are your bread and butter, right?
Yeah, they're good. Facility does well. I do well instructing. It's really good. It's just one of those things to where, luckily for me, I've had some great people in my life that have helped me better understand how are you going to make it. If your only source of income is what walks through that door, that's if the economy has a downturn or whatever, you're probably going to feel that. But luckily, with the presenting, the consulting, going on the road, doing events there, it's kind of allowed me to diversify a bit, which has been really, really good. It's just, it's constantly in flux, and we're constantly trying to figure out what's the best way, what's the most efficient way to use my time. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of excited. We're, I like to think I kind of understood how how prevalent social media was gonna be to my career when I became a full-time coach. When I really decided this was what I was gonna do, I did a lot with social media and kinda grew my business through social media, and I still think word of mouth is the absolute best form of marketing, but it happens to be the slowest. Having a megaphone with social media to kind of scream through really seemed to do a lot of good for my career, and I don't think that's slowed down, which is why we now have the podcast. We now have the YouTube. I think whether we like it or not, we're probably aging out of the demographic that matters. And the young people definitely are more incentivized and more familiar with online spaces than they are outdoors, which is sad to say, but true. So one of the big things I'm working on now, I think we're going to be launching it in the next month, hopefully, is I'm creating a platform, for lack of better terminology, let's call it a private Facebook on this platform to where coaches can come. I'm going to have my ground reaction force education up there. I'm going to put everything I've got up there, and they're going to be able to submit stuff as well. They're going to be able to submit captures. They're going to be able to submit whatever they want to submit to the platform. And then I'm going to get on there and do 4 live sessions a week. And it's going to basically be my mentorship that I'm doing now, but in a more formalized version to where people can log in. When I do these weekly meetings, I'm going to record all that, post all that. But I'm really excited about this because I think they're kind of going back to some of the things we've touched on. I don't know that if you're a new coach coming out, if you really know where to turn to get credible information to become a better coach. So hopefully what we're going to do is we're going to create that community. We're going to bring in, some great other coaches to share things and to be a part of this and really try to create a community for the golf instructor, because honestly, I feel like the golf instructor is kind of the low man on the totem pole when it comes to, golf. And we're all really a bunch of strippers and we're all bouncing around to different clubs all the time because the director of golf or the general manager, the head pro gets upset that the teaching guy is making too much money and he's outside and that guy's stuck inside. And like we're constantly being bounced around. And I think there's very little consideration given to the coaches out here. And the PGA likes to tell us to grow the game. Well, I think we're growing the game more, helping people play better golf. If you want people to play more golf, help them play better golf. They'll play more. I guarantee it. They'll spend more money, spend more time at the club. They'll enjoy golf more. They will be golf addicts for life if you can help them. And I think we're going to help a lot more golfers by investing and getting the coaching better versus getting the shirts folded better. So I really want to create this inclusive platform for coaches. And honestly, financially, it doesn't make sense to do it this way. But, we're going to really try our best to keep it pretty tight-lipped to the coaches and not let a lot of golfers into this community because I want to create this platform where nobody feels dumb asking a question. You put it out there, you're not going to get killed in the comments. Like, I want opposing views in this, but we need to take those opposing views and debate them in a respectful way and get to the bottom of it. And that's where I think we can really do some good with this community and really help people out.
Yeah, I mean, again, addressing that the next paradigm change, right? So we were talking the last time we spoke, and we talked. I mentioned to you that I had gotten into that Fenris app,
Yeah.
and they were saying that they were going to be able to measure the forces on your iPhone video, right? Not sure they're going to measure it. Obviously, it's going to be some kind of model,
Yeah. Predictive model.
predictive model, exactly. I don't know how accurate it would be in the end with respect to 1 sigma or 2 sigma or whatever. But, it's something is something, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have been to Aachen, Germany. I've met with Fenris very early on. I think it was in 22 that I was there, and they were showing me this stuff. And I think I don't I want to be clear. I don't have a problem with these things. So I currently use Sportsbox AI. I do, which is very similar to what Fenris is doing.
It's their competitor, right?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair way to say that.
Mhm.
What I do with Sportsbox is probably not what they want us to do. And a lot of what I do with it is the main thing that I love about Sportsbox is it takes your video and turns you into an avatar. So now people aren't looking at their bald spot. They're not looking at their gut. They're not like, oh my God, look what I look like on video. Right. So like it takes that away, which I love. And then it has a lot of tracers to where I can show people actually what their golf swing looks like. And I can show them the deviation of what their backswing versus their downswing looks like. And I can do a lot of really simple stuff like that. I primarily use it for that. Now, from what I understand, and I'm sure that they could, have Dr. Phil Cheatham get on here and explain it to me. But from what I understand, it's a one camera system and it's going to do certain measurements as a one camera system way better than other ones. So I feel comfortable and kind of looking at a golf swing and going, well, I kind of think I see this. And then going and checking that number against what I think I see. Now, when it comes to these, let's call it sways, our lateral movement in the golf swing, I use Sportsbox a lot for that. And I think it's fairly decent at measuring those numbers. Now, when it comes to the rotations, I have some questions because it's only a one camera system. I mean, even Koalasis, which is an 8 system, quarter million dollar machine, even it struggles with rotations. And that's why they glue the sensors all over you and all that stuff. So, with all that being said, I think there's going to be a big benefit to having more things in that space, more tools in that space. But the idea that we need to turn every golf swing into a math project and an algorithm, I wholeheartedly disagree with because I think the more of that we try to do to people, the less we help them play golf better. I think we want to use this information to kind of give us the ingredients as to how to coach. But what I try to do with force plates, what I try to do with sports box, what I try to do with TrackMan is these are diagnostic tools. They are not teaching tools. They're diagnostic tools. They tell us what happened. They tell us why it happened, but they don't tell us how to fix it. And that's where I think, like, I'm not worried about AI. I'm really not, because I know how messy and how sloppy human beings are. And then I also know that this thing in our head, this brain, has got a whole bunch of ideas in it as well. So it's always going to be an art to coaching involved with this. Do I think we need some data? Of course I do. Do I think we need to be objective? Of course I do. But once we have those things, it's always going to come down to the art of coaching still. And that's where I think a lot of these, you kind of called them overnight coaches. I think that's where they really struggle the most because they don't have that experience. And the only way you're really going to develop that art of coaching is through reps. And I love, man, like I absolutely love, and it, people kind of get a kick out of it. But, I'll go and coach on the road. I'll be outside on a driving range. And yes, I have the force plates, and yes, I have the TrackMan, and yes, I have Sports Box, but I'll spend the bulkhead of that time with that person not using any of it. And they're so blown away at how much I can help them with none of that stuff. And I go, once again, that stuff gave me the information I need to kind of understand how I need to try to help you. But it's still up to me to be the one to help you. Like, it's still me to bring up the change. And then what I love to do is, hey, once we've kind of done the change we think we want to do, hey, does that make, let's start with ball flight, right? Because that's what really matters. Does that make the ball flight better? Does that seem better to you? Well, yeah, Mike, that looks way better. Okay, cool. Does that feel better to you? Well, yeah, that actually does feel pretty good. Does this make sense to you? Yeah, Mike, that makes pretty good sense. Okay, great. Now let's remeasure and let's see if I change the things that I said needed to change or if I just blew smoke up their ass for an hour. And really, I like doing it this way because it holds me accountable. And like, I, once again, am way more interested in getting it right than being right.
But again, yeah, and when I mention this kind of stuff, I'm talking about more the portability on the student end, right? So if we're going into this cyber realm, which would be the internet, right, and Skillus and all these other things, where I mean, it's opening up the whole world, correct? I mean, I could take a class from somebody in South Africa, like I could take someone from Belarus or wherever, right? If I can provide you with as much information as I can, the portability of a smartphone, for example, right? We're not that far from getting a lot of good information out of a smartphone, in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think that it's just, it's like any technology, right? Like, all technology is imperfect because it's designed by man. And the way it's been trained to look at things, see things, think about things, the algorithms, they're all written by people and everybody has a bias. So I think the big thing is, I have clients all over the world that I work with virtually. I do a lot of virtual coaching and, we use Sportsbox. We use whatever we can get our hands on. Fortunate enough to know everybody, know the main players in the force plate community, to where, if some, like, I just had somebody reach out to me from Austin, Texas, and they're like, "Hey, I love your content. I love what you do. I would love to get on a set of force plates and work with you." And within an hour, I had him a list of 6 places in Austin, Texas that have force plates, or within an hour of Austin, Texas, that have force plates. And I'm like, hey, go book an appointment, get on the force plates, get the capture, send it to me, and we can rock and roll. So yes, if we didn't have to do that and we could just do it through the phone, I think that would be amazing. I don't understand how a camera is going to interpret ground force when I know that forces are invisible like that. And maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand it, which is probably the case. But at the same time, I just don't get that. So I'm a little hesitant to lend credibility when I haven't seen it work accurately yet. And to your point, I mean, this blows my mind every time I look at it. I pulled up, I got it right here in case people don't believe me. So I'm going to hold it there still for a second so people can see it if they want to zoom in on it. My little podcast, which is nowhere nearly as big as yours, has been listened to in 84 countries. Now, I got a feeling that you're way more worldly and smarter than I am, Ralph. but I'm pretty
Not
sure the
really.
2 of us
Not
I'm
really.
pretty sure the 2 of us couldn't put our heads together and come up with 84 countries. I mean, it's just crazy the reach, right? I mean,
Well, the
absolutely.
thing that you see, the thing is with me is that I was like one of the pioneers in this YouTube space, which was like in oh 08, oh 07. It was like the Wild West, and I had like 5 million whatevers. I mean, it was crazy. And then, but since I didn't understand this, I got the basically the YouTube death penalty somewhere around 2013, and I just went out about my life. And then somebody then we were asking, but it's not like really. I'm not as popular as some other guys, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm the kind of guy that if I get 1,000 views, that's a lot for me. You know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, I look at
Some of them go crazy, and there's no reason. I don't really have a rhyme or reason why things happen the way they just happen.
I don't understand it either. I mean, it's we've been, really hitting the social media and the YouTube a lot harder here as of late, and certain things just pop, man, and I don't
Yeah,
have a reason.
right.
I wish I did because I would
Right.
copy it, obviously, but I don't really understand why that happens. But then you look at the small amount of people that we touch, and then you kind of think of like a Rick Shields, and you're like, my God, how many people, how many countries does he interact with? I mean, it's crazy. Golf is really, I don't think the industry really is prepared or understands the global reach of it all.
Let's
And
see if
it,
we
it
get it.
really has become global.
Well, even this kid this weekend, Indian kid, and I'm not gonna. I don't want to butcher the kid's name.
You talking about Akshay?
Finishes fifth. No, not Akshay Bhatia. The kid finished fifth in the Players Championship. Self-taught completely from YouTube. Sunda, whatever. But the kid now, India has 1 billion people, right? The more success these kids have on the tour, the more the floodgates will open in that neck of the woods, which is
Yeah.
still kind of virgin territory,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a reason you see so many high level golf coaches spending more and more time in Asia. Same
Yeah.
thing. I mean, there's a bunch of my friends. One of the guys I'm presenting with, Mike Jacobs, he's over in Japan right now. There's guys in China, like Smart to Move just did a big thing over in China. I mean, it's just, the NBA, for better or worse, like the NBA has understood you can make a lot more money globally than you can nationally. And, I think that the world of sport is just constantly growing. I heard some crazy thing to where Netflix is investing right now more into sports content than they are like actual movie content. Because I mean, sports, you don't need writers. You don't need produce the stories are there to
Story
be
just
told.
evolves. It is what
Right.
it is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that there's a reason you look at the NFL's numbers, you look at the NBA's numbers, you look at even Major League Baseball, hockey, pick your sport. I mean, you just see this massive amount of growth. And golf is one of those weird ones, man, because anybody can do it. You don't have to be overly athletic. You actually can start for a reasonable amount of money. And maybe you don't have the best stuff, but you can find used stuff. But I mean, it touches so many people. And I just don't know that the golf industry has ever thought big enough to really encompass this. But if somebody gets smart and starts recognizing the value of this, I think it's just going to explode. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Mike Jacobs. Mike's been in China for a long time. In fact, the his star pupil right now he was the number one kid at St. John's, and he's from China. So he's been in exploring that realm.
And the markets are completely different. I mean, they will pay whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Korea, you go to China, you go to Japan, and I mean, like, you can X whatever your day rate is, and it's no problem. I mean, it's just completely different markets, but there's such a desire. I've been told, I have not been to Korea yet, but I've been told in Korea, there's like like if there's a intersection, there's 4 golf simulator places on every intersection over there. Like, they're just ate up with it. That's all they want to do, which is amazing.
Well, the thing I used when I ran the facility, it was heavily Korean, and this is like the late '90s. all the guys were trying to get their USPGA card to go back to Korea. So I had a kid, a young man who worked for me, became the head pro. His name was Jason Kang. Young, maybe 27, 28 years old. He goes back to Korea and they make him like the Brandel Chambly of the telecast and all this. That's where it was. But again, those nascent situations, they're desperate and hungry for good information, and they
Yeah.
will pay for it.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's just, it's always tough.
Yeah.
It's always tough because you have a language barrier. So, if you're pretty heavy with the information and pretty thick with it like I am, it's tough because your hour presentation turns into 3 hours pretty quick because everything's got to be translated. So,
An interpreter there, and he's like, waiting for you to finish so he can start his.
give me a break, dude. Like, stop, take a breath.
So it's double the length.
100%.
All right, Mike. Well, I don't have anything further for you unless you wanted to add something that,
Oh
you
man,
know,
it's always fun.
oh, it's always a pleasure, man. I really enjoy listening to you. I mean, you have a different perspective on this thing, and I think people enjoy watching and listening to your stuff based on the volume of views we get.
Yeah. I mean, I look, I got to be careful how I say this because it can come off the wrong way. And I honestly don't care. But every time I post something on social media, every time I post something on YouTube or the podcast, I probably get 20 messages within a day from people who are like sharing something to where somebody else is like verbatim ripping me off. Like, I mean, it's not even like they're trying to hide it. They're just recreating my content. And I really feel like the golf industry is known for this and is kind of bad for this because there's so many people trying to make money in golf. There's so many people trying to represent themselves as something maybe that they're not. But there's this kind of like vibe that goes on in the golf space online.
Goes on
And
everywhere.
it goes on everywhere, right? And at the end of the day, people try to get me stoked up about it, try to get me wound up about it, want me to go to war with these guys and girls. But honestly, like I'm gonna keep just saying whatever pops in this thing. And I'm gonna keep, working with the force plates. I'm gonna keep working with 3D. If we get something from Fenris that comes down the pipe and it's on our phone, I'm gonna work with that too, because once again, I'm just trying to get more objective data to be able to do a better job as the coach. So I feel like I'm going to stay true to myself. That's why I built my own place so that I wasn't told what I could say and what I could think. And I'm just going to keep kind of doing my best to be honest about things. And I've been on record before admitting when I'm wrong, and I'm going to make mistakes like that. That comes with the territory of kind of trying to be on this bleeding edge of information. But at the end of the day, man, I just try to share what I believe to be true from my perspective. And I'm very appreciative that people seem to like listening to it and like to seem to engage with it. And hopefully it
Yeah, I
helps,
mean,
like, ideally.
you put out there what you put out there, and it's going to be received. At the end of the day, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right?
That's what they keep
That's the
telling
way
me.
it goes. So it's the only way to look at it logically and sanely, right? Because if not, you'd be at war. There's guys on social media that just get a new enemy every day for whatever reason. It's not worth it, at the end of the
No,
day, it's not. It's a
I'm
clown
not
show.
I'm not here for the wars. I'm not here for the dick measuring contest.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I just don't care, man. Like, the thing I think that makes it tough is what I do, I take very seriously, and I'm a professional. This is what I do. This is what I've invested my life into. And this is professional space for me, right? So these podcasts, these YouTube, this is my professional space. And, a lot of other people that, these overnight coaches that you alluded to, they're just out letting it fly, man. And, the biggest thing that I've learned is you can't argue with idiots. So, for me, I engage with absolutely everybody that engages with us with a comment or whatever, a message, whatever it is. But the ones that are just like, talking smack and all that, like I just let it go. I got better things to do with my life than to get into these pissing wars online.
Wasted time and wasted energy. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for stopping by. I really
Yeah, man.
appreciate it. Thanks for your
Absolutely.
time, and we'll be
Hopefully we
back
do
in
another
touch.
one down the road.
Yeah. All right. Well, so long.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Stay there.